Using Dylan as a cheap shot.
I don't think Dylan feels I'm using him as a cheap shot. Only gay actors should play gay parts. Only Welsh actors, so Michael Sheen, should play Welsh characters. The moment we have dwarf roles, which are the most famous dwarf roles in Hollywood history, then the only people apparently who can't play them are dwarf actors.
So there's no more dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Have you heard that news?
No, I have not.
All right, roll the tape.
Joining me is Dylan Posel, who played Hornswoggle, the leprechaun, in WWE between 2006 and 2016, and by the podcaster and commentator James Barr. All right, James, you've got no problem with what Disney are doing. You think this is progressive and inclusive, and all those moaning about it should shut up?
I think you should live in the 1930s, actually, Piers, because that's where you belong, really.
Well, let me bring in Dylan, because Dylan is also offended, and he happens to be a dwarf actor. Dylan, I've got to say, I was very curious when I saw what Peter Dinklage came out and said, because I did wonder who appointed him the head of the dwarf actor community.
I was a little taken back by they're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White,
yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
So, look, take a step back and look at what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I know. That makes no sense to me.
Well,
you're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
Hi ho!
All right. Are you going to include that in there? So, in their idea of being progressive, Disney is no longer including dwarves in the remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that everyone needs their shot, no matter how big or small we are. I feel like that's a little discriminatory. I mean,
but it's progress.
Yeah, right.
You can't make fun of little people anymore.
I don't know. It's weird though, because they say it's progress, but like in what direction? Because obviously there are a lot of people upset about this. As we look in the one clip, if we roll this other clip, we're going to see potentially that's about what, seven
six. No, they're including one dwarf, and then the rest are normal-sized people.
Well, either way, that's 7 actors out of a job, a major role on Disney. Right. As they say, it's on a grand scale and everything. Disney always comes through, and it's a lot of exposure, and it could be groundbreaking for a lot of actors.
And the people who it seems to me have really suffered in all this are the 6 dwarf actors who would have expected to have roles in this remake in a massive Hollywood blockbuster, who are now not going to have that experience, or the money, or the fame that may have come with that. What is your response to that?
So it's not a progression at all to me. My issue with it is exactly what you said. There are actors, dwarf actors, that that dream to be in a major motion picture such as this Disney remake. And now, because Peter Dinklage said what he said last year, now it's taken away. And it's taken away because of quote-unquote progression and all of that. And it's not right. Because these are roles made for actors of my stature. Roles that aren't ever really given. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me. These dwarf roles are for people of my stature.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right. And not only that, but now think about the additional stunt actors or body doubles or that. Now you're talking multiple actors of my stature that don't get these major roles. And why? What's the reasoning? Because we're supposed to be progressive and we're supposed to just not view them as that.
Well, the
these
irony.
Were heroes.
The
all
irony.
of these dwarves, all of these dwarves took care of Snow White.
Right.
They all had characteristics, separate characteristics. They weren't these cave-dwelling monsters that people speak of.
But yeah, it's a shame that they're going to use normal size actors. I don't agree with that. I feel like that's kind of cheap and just takes away from it, because a dwarf is in itself is a mythical creature when it comes to like fantasy. You got elves, you got dwarves. It's in Lord of the Rings.
You got gnomes.
Yeah.
You got little
gnomes.
people.
You got gnomes.
Yeah.
You got fairies, and they're even smaller. So I don't see what's
the problem
wrong.
is. No, yeah. I gotta agree. because it is Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. I mean, that's been the title of the fairy tale since it was written in the however many years ago in the 1700s or 1800s. So now, because we don't want to offend people,
Yeah.
we want to call it Snow White and Seven Magical Creatures.
Right, or I guess it's just Snow White and empowering women across all planes of life, and Prince Charming apparently, and little people, because that's basically what they're saying. What's funny too is there's a comedian, Brad Williams. You know Brad Williams?
I don't know Brad Williams.
Hilarious guy. Look up his stuff.
Is he a midget?
He's very small. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
he's small.
He's probably like 3 feet tops.
Okay, so he's a midget.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he makes this funny statement about like jobs. Like there's certain jobs I can do and certain jobs I couldn't. One being the president. He's like, you know why? Podiums. I get that, and it's funny.
Podiums.
It's funny with that said. I actually looked up jobs that like little people could do, or is it dwarves? Whatever.
Dwarves, whatever.
We'll just
the
say
PC
people.
ways. Well, from what James, the English guy, is saying, they should be called people with dwarfism.
Okay, or people below the waist.
Okay,
So,
I call them dwarves and midgets.
yeah, below the waist. So you could be a teacher. That would be funny. Administrators, psychologists, customer service, finance officers, and dog groomers. I thought that was funny.
Dog groomers,
Could you imagine like a
because
client?
they can reach the dog a lot easier.
Could you imagine a client comes in with like a Great Dane, and he's like, "I need you to trim and wash this person." Like, okay, he starts climbing up the thing, gets his ladder out. You know what I'm saying? Like, bring him in, like hoist him in the crane so he can wash the top. The Great Dane would be
Yeah.
ginormous compared to him.
To the dwarf, yeah.
But that's something that you need to consider. They say chairs, steps, and accessibility. Either
Okay.
way, though, I'm pretty sure that this film would have been great with the dwarves on their own.
Well, if they wanted to be true to the original story, they should have the dwarves in there. So I do agree that this level of wokeness and progressivism, there's got to be a ceiling and a level to it. Where now you can't include everybody. Certain things should be allowable still to this day. Obviously, the dwarves are losing out, like you said, on these jobs. You can hear from Hornswoggle that he's missing out on an opportunity.
Roll a clip.
Peter Dinklage spoke up about this, and that was my issue. He had in the past no issue cashing checks that were made for dwarf roles like Elf and all of that. Yes, he blew away the barriers when he did his roles that weren't necessarily made for a dwarf, but the Elf role was made for a dwarf. That check cleared just fine. So now that he's gone and done that, the progression of dwarf actors, it just doesn't sit right with me.
No,
that this guy who is
Yeah.
exactly what you said, what gave him the voice for all of our community?
Yeah,
Why?
completely honest, I think
A
this is
complete hypocrite.
So for you guys who don't know who Hornswoggle is, I guess he worked for the WWE or WF or whatever they call it at this point for like 10 years, and so he was in show business.
And he played a leprechaun in WWE, and a leprechaun is a little person.
Exactly.
So-
But I guess we have to use giant people now to play little people. With that said, though, who was the other guy from Game of Thrones?
Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage. So he chimed in saying, yeah, it was discriminatory, too, to have little people and stuff. But you got to understand, too, that actor in Hollywood has been a big advocate for people of his size to have normal roles. He's
Right.
never wanted to play a role that characterizes a small person. He said that, too. He will never do that. He never wanted to do that.
But he played an elf in Elf.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
I thought he played an elf in
No,
Elf.
he played the creator of the publishing company for all the books. He was a big shot in Elf. Remember, he walked in with
Okay.
the suit and everything, and
But he was a
He was-
a little person.
yeah, but he was the owner of a publishing company. He wasn't an elf. Will
Oh, he
Ferrell, a
wasn't an
normal
elf.
sized person,
Was the elf.
Was the elf.
Okay.
Was step elf, whatever he was, a hybrid. I don't know. He's a human. But he's a big advocate against people playing stereotypical roles. But stereotypes is what creates dynamic and diversity and movies and storylines. Without that, you wouldn't have any dynamic.
Right, but so I can agree to that to an extent, but in this particular case, I think you need to have the dwarves because the fairy tale involves the dwarves.
That's what I'm saying. No,
Yeah.
I'm all about the
Yeah,
dwarves.
yeah.
I'm all about the dwarves. I think that people just need to use whatever God gave them to the best of their abilities. you know?
So because of what he said, Disney made this big change, all because of what one person,
Yeah.
who happens to be a famous dwarf actor, probably the most famous dwarf actor right now, next to Mini-Me, said.
Well, yeah, but then you also had like Wee Man, from Jackass.
We man,
It's funny you should ask this because a buddy of mine, we're talking about this the other day. and it's perfect timing for this because of all the AI and all that like SAG and the Writers Guild are going through. It's a bad thing. I'm not agreeing with it. One, because what they're doing is pretty much you're replacing jobs that people could have as little people. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it's for dwarfs.
What's crazy too about this movie too, on a side note, is that they don't even want the love story anymore with Prince Charming or any of that. Everything's so woke now and all about women empowerment that apparently the little guys can't get a shot because I guess normal-sized women don't accept you. I'm assuming that's what that means. Just putting it out there. If this is empowering, then why are you canceling out other culture?
So Prince Charming is not going to be in the movie? I haven't heard that part.
Apparently, the actress says, "Oh, he's like a stalker in this. It's so weird."
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Oh,
so we didn't do that this time.
So no Prince or a different kind of Prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie.
What shirt is she wearing?
Great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I'm really not looking forward to seeing it. It could have been a great film. They've done so many different Snow White films, storylines, TV shows over the years, but it's about time that they do an all-out Hollywood production, Disney budget film. And unfortunately, just like with Little Mermaid, they're ruining it.
Yeah. Well, see, The Little Mermaid, I'm okay with. Having, Ariel played by a black actress, I was fine with that. Whatever. But here, in this case, this is specific to the stature of the characters, who are heroes in the movie, in the book, in the fairy tale. They're not made fun of. They actually save this girl, Snow White, from the evil princess, and take her in and help her and befriend her.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And what I think that really shows, and what the audience and what Hollywood and what Disney should be understanding is, someone who comes from such a different background, no matter how big or small, is willing to open their hearts and help someone else who's completely different. That is the message in that story to me when it comes to the dwarves. Yeah. And by taking them out of the picture shows that we're not open-minded, we're not open to equality, and we're not willing to look at dwarfs or little people as people, because now we're canceling them out. This is part of cancel culture. And you did it, Disney. All right? And the rest of you feminists out there. Cut. Boom. Anyways, let's roll some more footage.
And that I think stereotypes are really important to
What stereotype do you think they represent?
In the universe of Snow White, wouldn't it be better if dwarves
This isn't a part of this about the stereotype.
Right.
This is about roles that were made for people of my stature that don't have the chance to go out for other roles normally.
But you, James Barr, you want to stop Dylan getting a role in a Hollywood film.
I am not going to get into an attack on a dwarf.
You don't want a dwarf actor to land the role playing a dwarf part.
Listen, a dwarf can play a dwarf part, but I think it's important to change narratives that don't fit in today's society. And really,
Which is that narrative?
It might be better if dwarves just exist in normal roles everywhere, because they do exist.
What was so bad about the way dwarves were depicted in Snow White? Have I missed something?
Well, listen, I'm not here to talk about...
That's what I'm kind of wondering as well.
I don't represent Disney, but I'm just saying I think I see their point of view.
What's their point of view? What was so bad about the depiction of the dwarves?
Why are you so upset about a movie changing with the times and moving forward?
Because I think that, honestly, with great respect...
There is real news we could be discussing.
No, but this is real news if you're a dwarf actor who are now out of work because of virtue-signaling idiots.
But you're just
who think that everything has to be rewritten to be inclusive,
as a cheap
when in fact it's not inclusive at all.
No. So it seems to me that James agrees with what Hornswoggle and Dylan, let me call him Dylan, is saying, except for when Pierce says it. For whatever reason, he's got, just such a gripe on Pierce that he's totally not even able to present his point clearly, and he's losing me on his argument.
Yeah. I just think it's so stupid. I just think it's really...
it's ridiculous.
I think it's just so stupid.
It's dumb.
It's so stupid. And it's stupid that that we have to be making an episode about this because, you know, we were all tiny at one point. It's just, it's just some of us grew.
And some of us didn't.
In more ways than one. You know, mentally and physically. You know, everyone's got their flaws. And from what I'm seeing, Disney is kind of losing it. I think they're losing their minds. Are they afraid that no one's going to see it because their ratings have dropped? Anyone who creates this exclusivity argument and tries to cancel out traditions, you know, traditional stories and fairy tales that are already altered from the original story, by the way, because they never had a happy ending. But we did that for you, America, apparently. That's what Walt did. But now
They never had a happy ending?
They never. No, the real stories, they'd always wind up dying or something
dwarves?
tragic. No, any.
Oh, in any fairy tale.
Any Disney, any
the original story of these fairy tales
that Walt Disney
are
took.
a lot more grim.
Yeah.
And not always happy at the end.
Yeah, there's nothing
All
PG or PC about this. There's never a happy ending, but Walt Disney made those happy endings and created
kids.
love for the kids, for the family value, for man and woman, and all that are traditional thinking. But yet, someone in office at Disney decided to take all this away and undo Walt Disney's dream. So if you want to think about it, Walt had a dream, and now we're ruining it. Boom. You know what I'd like to know? Your thoughts below. Post down below in the comments. Let us know what you think. Should little people have a chance, or are they just not worth it anymore? You tell us.
Dwarves, 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 dwarves.
Hi-ho!
Comment below.
Two bald dudes.
So I gotta try to hopefully I don't block that too much. So we just gotta get
Are you
closer.
recording right now?
It's been recording since you said there's an earthquake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, looks good to me. All right, perfect.
And then well you gotta come in now.
Well, yeah.
All right.
All right. Do you know how you want to start this off?
I know you had the